Hey everybody, it's Safi and Marco, Dish Out on the Movies. Today we are reviewing a brand new R.L. Stine book that came out yesterday. It's the second in the series of books that he has written called The House of Shivers. And it is called Goblin Monday. And basically, just the character of this boy, he is from Key West, Florida, and he is going to visit his family, his relatives, in a very snowy place. And he's looking forward to it because he's never been in snow, seen it firsthand, or been around it. So he's looking forward to doing all the things that you do in the snow, like sledding, for example, or anything else. So, Marco?
Well, I thought that this book, I was not looking forward to it based on the title, which I thought was queer, because I thought, you know where this title came from. You know, R.L. Simp was sitting around watching On a Golden Pond, and he was like, or his wife was like, first R.L. Stine was like, I hate Mondays. Mondays suck. I just hate Mondays. And his wife came in and she's like, R.L., as if she calls him R.L. She probably doesn't, but for the sake of story purposes, she was like, R.L., you're acting like a real goblin today. And then he was like, wait a second. Mondays are terrible. Goblins. Oh, Goblin Monday. Woo! Got a new Goosebumps book. Hey, Scholastic. I got a book. It's going to be called Goblin Monday. You want to know the funny story where I came up with this title? And then he goes back to watching On Golden Pond.
Actually, there's a famous Mama and Papa's song about Monday being not so great, so that could have been who knows what he was thinking of, but then he's thinking about goblins and Mondays.
My story is much more likely, like his wife was like, R.L., you're acting like a real goblin today. Like as if she talks like that, like that'd be pretty hilarious, and that would have been a good, because the first thing we should talk about is we still do not know why the series is called House of Shivers. There's no explanation at all. It's just like a title for the series to differentiate it from Slappy World and other series. But you think about like Slappy World, there was a reason why it was called Slappy World. It was called that because Slappy announced the books. He had the little breaks where he talked. And so there was a reason. And with this series, there's no reason for it to be called House of Shivers. And I was telling Safi, they could have had something simple. Like you have a big scary house, that's the House of Shivers. Mr. Shivers lives there. He's some zombie, ghoul, goblin, gross guy. And he's got a big library. He goes in there, he takes out a book, and he says, I have a lot of scary stories, here's one of them. And then that's how each book would start, is like him introducing, like, here's the new story.
I think that's a great idea.
That's all he had to do. Or you could do something kind of cutesy and kind of meta, where every book would start off with R.L. Stine in real life coming up with the title. Like him just living out his normal life, and then all of a sudden something scary happens, and he's like, oh, actually, this would make for a good title based on my experience here. That would be cool, too. Because then, you'd see R.L. Stine at the beginning of every one, and he would almost become like a character. That would be fun. But no, it's just jump straight into the story. It's House of Shivers. In the audiobook, they have this really weird techno music. It's like, how does it go, Safi?
I don't know.
Like,
Well, I was playing a game at the same time, and I thought I had pressed the.
No.
I have all that stuff on mute when the commercials come on, so I have to listen to them. And I thought I had accidentally pressed the unmuted button, and the music from the commercial was coming out.
No.
Because I'd never heard the music before, so it was strange. It was the weirdest music to have with the book. So, I mean, I don't know. And I think they're stuck on that now because in the Slappy World books, whenever at the end when there's trouble, they play the same song every single time. And
well, not every time. There were a lot of books where they didn't play it, and I would say that that was one of the most disappointing things about those books too, is that like they were so inconsistent about that, you know.
Yeah, but they never played a different kind of music. They just played that. If they played music at all, it would be that. And you're like, uh-oh.
Yeah.
You already knew they were in trouble. I mean, they didn't have to play the music to know that they were in trouble with whoever it was, whatever character it was. So.
And so, like, that's thing number one, is that we still don't know why it's House of Shivers. Now we get to the story. I thought, there were a couple of things I thought. Number one, it was a very fun book. It had a lot of good writing. It had a lot of good creepy moments. It was surprisingly gory, if you can believe that. If you can believe that R.L. Simp would have the balls to make a Goosebumps book gory. And that was another funny thing, was like there were several moments in this book where I was like, how the hell did this get past the sensitivity readers? Like, the sensitivity readers, they're so, they're so, like, uptight about, like, if you say that a black person looks like a rapper from MTV, then that's racist. But then when it comes to, like, let's just say, well, first off, spoiler alert, the main character, he's a kid. He gets killed at the end. He gets brutally murdered on screen. Basically, they start killing him, tearing open his flesh. It's really, really gruesome. And then there's also two parts where the grandfather character, he is eating a live bird twice, and it's completely detailed, completely graphic. And then there's another part where it's revealed that the grandfather has like this room full of birds' feet, where every time a bird dies, he cuts off their feet and hangs them on the walls. And it's like, well, this is hardcore right here. This is exactly what we needed in Goosebumps.
Well, I guess that remains to be seen in terms of kids. What does it say what it's supposed to be aimed toward, the age group?
I don't know. I don't pay attention to that.
Well, you see if kids, whatever, to ages 12, 13, if they like that kind of book. It
will.
It was a lot better than these Slappy World books. I mean, you can tell it was very well written, and
the reader was good.
And the reader was very good. So we have another good reader, which I'm really happy about, because really, I'll tell you, if you have a bad reader, and even if you have a good story, they can make it, if you're listening to an audiobook anyway, they can make all the difference in the world. And they can make the book not be as good. And I'm not kidding. I've experienced this, so I know. And, but I mean, Marco just mentioned all this, quote, violence, and at the end, it was very violent.
It was very cool.
Shocked. I was really shocked.
It was shocking, and it was also something where I was like, you know what? Like, even though there was some stupid stuff at the end with the main kid, he's revealed to be an agent for the International Goblin Hunting Agency. I thought that was queer, but the ending completely made up for it because it was so graphic and cool.
Well, what's really interesting, weird about this book, there are magical creatures in it. And you say goblins, well, that's the main one, of course, in reference to the title, of course. There's also imps and gremlins, right? Is it gremlins that that Grandpa talks about at the end? He said, this is a true story. I never make anything up. So you have other magical creatures. And the reason why the bird feet are on the wall was because there's a big cage, a giant cage, and I can't even explain. It must be as big as a room, or I don't know. And the grandpa keeps all these special birds. He had lovebirds, he has a gray parrot, and all these other types of birds. And so he feeds them every day and has to clean the cage and all this. So if they die because old age or sickness or whatever, to remember them, he cuts off their feet. And Marco said this, and he has an entire wall where he's put all these feet. So those are all his favorite birds, the feet of his favorite birds. So that is strange. And that kind of reminded me of the Alfred Hitchcock movie Psycho, in a way, because, I mean, feet are feet, but you know how Tony Curtis.
Tony Curtis?
Sorry, Tony.
What the fuck?
Tony Perkins.
What?
The
Tony?
Oh, the guy.
Anthony.
Anthony Perkins. Norman Bates has all these creatures stuffed because he practices taxidermy.
Yeah.
In his hotel, in his office. And, well, I don't know if there were any in the house, but in his office especially, because I remember them panning to each one, the woman who checks in or the one who never gets to check out. And she's looking at all the different creatures on the wall, and I'm thinking about the kid. When they go there, he sees all these feet on the wall, and how, I don't know, it just kind of reminds me of it.
It was reminiscent of that, and there was another part of this book where, well, as I said, the grandfather Tweety, which I will say that, you know, these books so far, they have had some of the worst names in Goosebumps history.
Yeah, I didn't care for that.
Like in the last book, you know, you had the guy who called himself the Bookworm, which I thought was the queerest thing in all time, all of history. And in this one, you have Grandpa Tweety and Mon Mom. Which? You know, like Mon Mothra or something. You know, like it really, really weird. Mon Mom.
Well, you know, when you hear stuff like that in the book, and all along, you know, you're trying to figure out what's going to be the horror in the book. Because, you know, he mentions goblins, and then he mentions imps, and then the other thing, that was at the end, that wasn't that scary or weird, but... And you're trying to think, well, he's called Tweety. Is he really a bird or something? And then what's his wife? Is she a bird too? And that's what I was thinking, maybe, because why would anybody be named that?
Yeah.
So I was thinking he was a bird.
Yeah, I thought, like, he was going to turn into a bird at the end or something,
yeah.
and fly away or something. But, like, there were parts, as I said before, where he picks up a bird and he eats it alive. It is so creepy and scary and good. And but that was a lot like, and obviously The Girl Who Cried Monster, where the librarian would eat the you know, the turtles and the snails and everything. Which I've had snails before. Safi, do we want to talk about that?
Ew.
We want to talk about the birthday dinner.
Escargot.
We were at Wellington Grill.
I think you have before.
We were at Wellington Grill, and I just thought that I could get the snails as like an appetizer so that I could try them and then get the real dinner.
No, that's a dinner.
But instead, I was forced to just eat that as the whole dinner, and it was not good. I struggled to eat it. It was not tasty at all. And they tried. They had a butter sauce, and the butter was just not enough.
Well,
It was that.
maybe they didn't. It could be that maybe they didn't know how to cook them properly.
I don't know.
I don't know either. I've never eaten them. I don't think I want to. If any of you, if anybody's listening to this, have you ever eaten escargot? And did you like it, and why, and how was it served? Did you have it as an appetizer, or did you eat it as a meal? I've actually just heard of it as a meal. I've never heard of it as an appetizer, so I don't know.
Well, because they're so small, they only gave me like 6 or 8 or something, and they're really small. There's nothing else to the dish. It's like, WTF. So, anyways, also, I would say that this book, a lot of it is just the kid trying to figure out what's going on. There's supposed to be goblins, and then the grandfather, he's written goblin stories, and,
Grandfather's a famous author, apparently.
Yeah. And so that he actually believes in goblins, and so that's kind of good, because usually the adults, they don't believe what's going on.
They don't believe in anything.
And, so, Safi, this book, Safi disagrees with me, but this book reminded me a lot of the X-Files.
I don't know why.
Especially the part where the grandfather eats the birds, like, that didn't really remind me of The Girl Who Cried Monster as much as I thought of, like, this could have been in an X-Files episode. Mulder is, like, spying on the bad guy, and then he pulls out a bird and eats it. Like, that's like an X-Files moment. And the whole book of, like, the mystery and everything, like, it just, I really thought that it was like X-Files.
Well, I disagree. I don't know. I was just trying to figure out all along, too, what was going on. I mean, there's an imp. I don't know if you've ever heard of an imp, but it's just like, it's in the laundry room, and then later on, the kid started going to sleep, the visitor from Key West started going to sleep. His name was Mario, and he started to go to sleep, and then something hit him, like smacked him or bumped him or whatever. It was this imp, and it was orange, and he had a beard, I think, or something, and it's get out of my bed, that's my bed. And
yeah, that was a queer part.
And I'm like, what does this have to do with anything? That's what I'm trying to...
It was a dream.
I don't think so.
It was!
Well, the grandfather said there was an imp in the laundry room. And then he showed them, see, he left his jacket behind.
Oh, yeah, there was also a rabbit that the kid finds, Mario. He finds this rabbit, and it was torn open. There's blood and guts everywhere.
Outside.
So that's another thing. It's like, shit. Like, he really, I maybe somebody listened to our reviews or something, because this really felt like Goosebumps going in the right direction.
Well, it's also, Marco tried to make it sound like maybe there are red herrings.
Yeah, there are, like, there's this whole subplot about stew, about the grandmother. She makes stew all the time, different kinds of stews, and which kind of reminded both of us of Stay Out of the Basement with that green goob soup, whatever.
But they don't say that. They don't say that it's bad or that it tastes bad or and they all eat it. But I was thinking, like, is this going to make them turn into something?
Yeah.
I kept I had that in the back of my mind. And so you have all these little things that happen. Then they do go sledding. And remember, this kid's from Key West, so that's a big deal. But they have these old wooden sleds, and you know, you've seen sleds. They do last. Even older ones, they last forever. They're very sturdy, but he doesn't think they are. And but they do go down this huge hill. They're the only ones out there sledding, and there's a bump on it. So when you hit the bump on the way down, it makes you fly out. You have to hold on, of course, and you go real high, and then you go further out, and then you finally stop. And so they start to go again, and the male cousin, he takes it down by himself.
Todd.
And he hits the bump, and then he I don't know, somehow he let go, and he hit his head really hard on a rock. And I mean, his sister's having a fit. She thinks that he's been, he's seriously hurt, and that boy from Florida thinks, oh my God, maybe sounded like he thought he might be dead or something. And they're all worried, and then the kid just wakes up, and then they never even address the problem again. And I thought that was weird too. I don't know, because it could have been really serious, but it wasn't. It was nothing. It was another, quote, red herring. But maybe it gave a clue into what they're really all about. The two cousins, it's the brother and the sister. So, but at that time, though, you look at it like, that's strange. What's this got to do with anything? So you're all along, when you read the book, you're going through and you're trying to figure out, what does this mean? And what's going to happen when they do this? And is it going to be like if they eat the stew, that's going to make them turn into something? And is the grandpa a bird? You just think of asking these questions all the way through, trying to figure out what this is about, which, that's a good thing, because if you can just figure it out in 2 seconds, you're really good at doing that, which I've done, but it makes it a lot better if it makes it harder to figure out, because when you get to the ending and it's not what you expected, then that makes it good. Okay.
Well, it was fun in that way, and that it wasn't really like other. It didn't really feel like the last couple of Slappy World books that we've read. It felt like it was its own thing, like an X-File type of thing. And it was really interesting to... I really like the atmosphere, the wintry atmosphere. I really like the setting. I really like the descriptions of the goblins and everything. Like Safi wrote down, there was one part where... What was it, Safi? What did he describe the goblin as? It's on your notebook.
I don't know. I can't see it in here. It's dark.
Give me your notebook.
No, I wrote...
Talk about stories. Talk about...
Are you talking about the gremlins?
Oh, where is it? Say something.
Well, anyway, so... in these last 2 Slappy World books we read, the endings were a little bit, one was absolutely ridiculous and pissed me off, and the other one was lame and, I guess I'll just say lame. And so when you get to this, because the ending is so violent, it's actually shocking.
Yeah.
And I don't think I've read one of these kinds, or I should say any R.L. Stine book that's been shocking in a while.
Yeah.
And I think, back when he started writing, remember I have another boy who grew up with the original books. When, let's say The Haunted Mask, and then you find out that all those masks in the shop they come alive. They talk. And And then when her mother makes that head out of plaster of Paris that looks like her daughter, Carly Beth, then that talks and says, "Help me." And so that's kind of shocking. And so since then though, except for maybe Stay Out of the Basement, Welcome to Dead House, there haven't been many books, I think, of any kind that we've read that have been like really shocking. I mean, this one was like a Nightmare on Elm Street or a Halloween.
It ended and all of a sudden it turned into an R-rated horror movie in like a really good way.
I don't want some parent to have a cow. It isn't something like that, but and start banning books or some BS like that. But it's just it just shocked me, and I appreciated it because
it was refreshing.
Well, it was refreshing because after reading, some kids just says these zombie kids attack him, and he's going to say, "Okay, if you let me join your band, I won't do anything, and I'll just let you take me, and I'll be fine with it." I mean, come on, really? Really? Is that what somebody would do when they wanted to be alive and go home and be with their family and go back to the place they knew and grew up? They're just going to say, "Oh, no, I'll just stay here in some place I wasn't born and raised in, and never see my parents again." And, I mean, come on. So, I mean, this was a lot more, and it was just a little bit. It didn't last very long, maybe a couple of sentences. So I don't want anybody having a cow about it, but it's just refreshing to us and to me. And I'm not, I like reading. I've read children's books all throughout my life because when you have children, you go to the library because you can't buy everything, and you read to them, and so you try to find books that they might like. So this is better than that because it's for older kids. So I'd be interested to see what 12-year-olds, 13-year-olds, what they thought about the book.
I think it's good because a lot of people have talked about how Welcome to Dead House feels a certain way, and not even most of the other books in the series capture the same feeling that Welcome to Dead House does. And I would say that this book actually captures somewhat of the feeling that Welcome to Dead House did, because it was similarly very dark. I mean, because one of the twists at the end of the book is that basically everyone but the main kid is a goblin. So everyone but the main kid is out to get him.
He's all alone.
He's the only person. He's the only one. And I don't think I can recall another Goosebumps book, or maybe like multiple, like, I don't know, maybe Go Eat Worms, no. Most Goosebumps books, if not all of them, always have that second character for the kid to latch on to and for them to help each other. This is the only one where this kid's all by himself, and he gets fucked up. Right?
And what's interesting too, because when you're a children's book writer, this is what I've read when I was trying to be a children's book writer, you try to make the kid be in charge or responsible, to be the main focus. You don't want them to be dependent on their parents or somebody else. But this kid, and for this kid to be in this kind of position, he's supposedly a goblin hunter, but he's a kid, and he's doing this. So why? That's kind of strange. But I mean, that's what you do when you're a children's book writer. You're making the children be more, because it inspires kids to read it, because they're seeing themselves in a more independent type of position where they're not depending on their parents or another adult to help them out. They're trying to save the day. They're trying to help people or whatever. So I was kind of surprised that a kid was in this, and that was a surprise, because that wasn't something you would have expected. That was another thing.
Yeah.
And it's just surprising that he has a very big responsibility, and he brings a leaf blower with him from Key West, which is kind of a strange thing in Key West to have a leaf blower, because it's not like they have any leafy trees. I think it'd be more like palm trees in Key West, and so they all remarked about, and that's when he first arrived there, he brought this with him. They all thought it was hilarious.
Yeah, and I thought it was kind of goofy, the stupid leaf blower, but then the leaf blower actually really helped out near the end, where he was basically surrounded by goblins, and the only thing that can get goblins is nutmeg. And I was a little surprised, why would, if these guys are goblins and they don't want to be fucked with, why would they tell anyone what would get them?
Yeah.
Like,
their weakness.
That would be like a vampire giving a guide to the main character of, like, here's what you can do to kill me. Because you notice in vampire movies, the vampire never tells the main character what to do to get them. It's always another character that the main character has to go to learn how to defeat the vampire. But in this book, the goblin people, they actually tell the kid nutmeg. But the only thing they do that you can say is that they gave him a pendant, and they said it had nutmeg in it, but it actually had cinnamon.
They gave everybody to throw him off. They gave everybody a pendant.
So I guess that's passable, but still, you never have vampires telling the main characters how to defeat them. That's kind of weird. Right.
Yeah. And the thing is, during the story, now the boy from Florida has the two cousins, and they have his parents are with their parents are with them, and they're in a very snowy place, maybe Michigan, something like that. And it's just snowing and snowing and snowing and snowing. In fact, they could be having snow now, because they said there was supposed to be snow up north. And the parents go out, and the kids are very, very worried about them, and they are missing, and they have to go out looking for them. And they go out. They go into their bedroom. And they had been trying to call them. Well, they left their cell phone behind, and they left their pendants behind. So they were even more worried. At least the one boy, I don't know if the kids were concerned about the pendants or not. They did notice that the cell phone wasn't there, and they were upset about that. But anyway, that was another thing that happened during, and that throws you off too, and you're thinking, like, I wonder what happened. They said, well,
we both thought that they were killed by the goblins.
Yeah, that's what you think, because
but they weren't.
They didn't have their pendants on.
That was one of the queer things, was that at the end, the parents come back, and they said that they got stuck in the snow. I don't really know what that means.
No, there's no explanation for that.
That's kind of weird. I've never gotten stuck in the snow before myself.
Well, if you're driving, I could see getting stuck in the snow.
Your mom got stuck in the snow. But anyways, that's their explanation. And then they turn into the goblins, of course. And at that point, Safi and I both figured out that the kids would be goblins, because I thought, well, if the parents are goblins, that means that the kids should be goblins too.
And they don't say that. They don't say that right away. They don't say anything. They act scared, and you're thinking, oh, they're scared of their parents and grandparents, which parents and grandparents, and they're not goblins.
Yeah.
So you just don't know what to think. It just doesn't make sense. And then at the end, it all comes together and makes sense. So
I mean, I would say the book is very good. I really enjoyed it. Again, I thought it was like X-Files. There were very few things that I didn't like about it, which is also why it's not really like our usual reviews where we're tearing it apart. Like with Judy and the Beast. Like this was just a million times better than, I would say, like all the Slappy World books, basically. Like, I would say that this is kind of like tied with the top 2 Slappy World books, because I would probably rather read the Invisible Boy one again, but I could also see reading this one again. So.
Well, I don't know about that.
What?
It is rereadable, but it just seemed like, I don't know what's in R.L. Stine's mind, but the Slappy World books, it seems like he was tired of writing them. And maybe he was looking forward to writing something more substantial.
Yeah.
It didn't involve Slappy. That involved other kinds of horror, which there are other kinds of horror he ought to know because he's written about it. Written about them, the different types.
Well, I will say that the funny thing is that at the end of this book, I thought, what would be really cool is to see other books, let's say like a Slappy book. It would be cool to see a Slappy book in this type of story, like in a House of Shivers type of way, where it's violent and where it's a lot darker and more realistic. Because that's another thing. This book was very grounded, but you could tell the moments where it was a little more kiddish and goofy, you could kind of tell where those moments were. Like those moments stood out because the rest of the book is very dark, I guess.
The kid gets attacked by a goblin.
Yeah.
And a couple of times. Grabs onto him, and
the
kid sticks up for himself, and he fights him off. And this happens like when they're outside in the back of the house or something, or at the beginning of the woods or whatever, and instead of going oh and just doing just doing that, then actually standing up for yourself and fighting it off.
Yeah.
So, to me, that was different too. So anyway, I'm not sure what to give this book to rate it. Are we doing food reviews for this?
No! You like that, Safi?
If we're just giving it a grade, I'd probably give it I'd probably give it an A-, because it went on so many,
I would also give it an A-.
I mean, there was just, there's so many red herrings, and then you think of all these past books about things that happened that are kind of relatable to this book, like, is this what's going to happen because of what you read years ago? Is that going to happen? Because he kept bringing up the thing about the different stews.
Yeah.
Like, what does that mean? They're all going to turn into birds? Or, just like, I just kept trying to think of all the possible things that could happen.
They kind of also did that in Ghost Beach, In that book, it was either stew it was either chicken soup or chicken pot pie that they kept on eating, and yeah.
So, I guess if that's what we're going to do, then
A-.
Yeah, we both gave it an A-, and that's pretty good considering lately what we've been giving everything has not been anywhere close.
Yeah, like I didn't give a single Slappy World book an A, so that should tell you something.
I don't think I did either. And certainly these last 2 books.
Yeah, Judy and the Beast.
And 5th grade zombies.
Ew.
Ugh, God. So anyway, if you like this video, give it a thumbs up. And Marco, were you going to talk about and become one of our subscribers so we can hear your feedback?
Talk about what?
you heard about what the next book's going to be about.
Oh, yeah.
You said you were going to mention that.
Yeah, well, I just can't wait for you to find out, because you're going to freak out. So the next book in this series, and now here's where we should play the Slappy World music. Dun, 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 dun. You know, that music tells you the kids get fucked up. Well, now Safi's going to get fucked up because the next book is Night of the Living Mummy. Like, yeah, I wonder where that came from. Night of the Living Mummy. Like, isn't that creative, Safi?
Oh, boy.
And so here's the cover. You got this mummy guy, and there's an amulet, of course. There's always got to be an amulet. And the mummy looks like, hey, man, I'm just a mummy here. And he kind of looks like a teenage mummy, too. He doesn't have any genitalia. They cut it off, probably, in the mummification process. Is that what they do?
I don't know.
That would be something to find out. What did they do with that in the mummification? And so, because maybe Earl Simple read about that.
I doubt it.
Why not? And I actually think that the story sounds kind of good. Basically, this kid, Happy Silverman, that's his name, he's really excited about a class trip to the museum. And he wants to get as close to the mummy display as he can. And something strange happens. All of a sudden, this kid, Happy Silverman, he gets schizophrenia. And he hears voices in his head. And it turns out the mummy, quote unquote, is inside his brain and needs his help or else. So this is kind of like dark and realistic. Like, this is all about a kid at the museum getting schizophrenia. What do you think of that, Safi?
They don't say that, but Mark was saying that because he, quote, hears voices.
Yeah.
And it's coming out in September.
Yeah.
Early September. So, anyway, that's it for
You like
today.
that title?
No, because I'm thinking Slappy.
Yeah, that's pretty weird. He was probably like, I literally don't know what to write about now. Let's just look at past titles and see if I can do a spin on one of those. Oh yeah, Dummy and Mummy rhyme, which is why I did the Dummy Meets the Mummy. So now I'm going to do Night of the Living Mummy.
So goodbye, everybody.
Bye.